Listeners, you've heard about War for the Tower. Now go listen to it. You'll enjoy it, I promise. warforthetower.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 7, allegedly Episode 12, Nightmare in Silver. In this episode, the little kids come along this time for a ride to what was supposed to be a theme park. I really want to see one of Doctor Who's days out go according to plan, but he's always wrong about where they're going and what they're going to do. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jaime.
Alright, so we have a fucking Cyberman again.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Now, remind me, do they have, like, that contract that the Daleks have where they're, like, required to come back?
Not sure about the Cybermen.
I feel really don't understand continuing to go back to this well.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with that this is one of the formidable enemies that the Doctor has had over the years. Yeah, I don't know. Because other than when they had that argument with the Daleks, I don't really care about the Cybermen.
Yeah,
I loved
that
it
was
when
the
they
best
argued.
part for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
And this at least is a slightly different way to deploy the Cybermen.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's something different.
Mm-hmm. That I did appreciate, that it wasn't just like, oh, we're going to cut you up into pieces and you'll never be able to come back from that.
Yeah.
Although it does sort of lower the stakes of them even more when they already didn't feel super scary to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, maybe you just can't win with me. But, you know, we all know that's true. When I realized that was what we were going to do, that it was going to be a Cybermen episode, I was just so bummed. Because I don't care about them, especially. Mm-hmm. And I was already very leery about the kids being involved in this episode.
Well, at least they got sidelined pretty early.
Yeah, they wound up not being too big a problem. I thought they might be, like, you know, at the root of everything going wrong somehow. Not really. Shit was going to go off the way that it was going to go off, like... Well, I guess not, because the whole point was that, like, the Cybermen needed children. But they were, like... not instrumental in terms of, oh, we did something really stupid and ruined the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, because I just don't want that. I will say, though, that I got a little salty with them when they get off the TARDIS and the kids are like, this isn't an amusement park. This is just the moon. Lame. Oh my god, kids. If it's the moon, then you're on the fucking moon. Like,
yeah.
How are you so jaded already? You haven't even gone and done anything yet. It's one thing if Clara's like, oh, it's just the moon. Because she's been there and seen that. The moon's old news. But these kids, like, come on. Jesus Christ.
Well, wasn't it just Angie? Wasn't the little boy Artie pretty cool about everything?
He said I think it's just the moon except dirtier. So he was even worse in that first moment than she was.
I mean, if I was taken to the moon under any circumstances, I'd be like, holy fuck.
Right?
I'm on the moon.
This is what I mean. But yeah, so what are your feelings about this episode? Usually I ask that right off the top, but I didn't. What do you feel on this one?
I remember when I originally watched this, I wasn't that into it. And then later they made a Funko Pop of Mr. Clever. And I remember thinking when I saw it, like, no, I want one of the Doctor. I don't want one of fucking Mr. Clever. Because my memory was that I just did not like this episode. But I don't hate it. Rewatching it, I like a lot of it. I especially like watching it this time around for, like, I watched it yesterday to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. And I really, really like Matt's performance. Mm-hmm. And I love Warwick Davis. And so I like Clara a lot in this episode. There was a lot of stuff in here that I really, really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. So I could overlook, like, what I don't like, which is Cybermen.
Yeah, I will say I really appreciated Clara getting so much more to do, actually being in charge and taking control of the situation. And that was just such a difference from so many, like, she has had a pretty forceful personality, but it has felt like she hasn't been given the opportunity to explore what that actually means in the context of the adventures they're having. Yeah. You know, so I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and, like, the Doctor puts her in charge, and she's just like, okay, so I'm in charge. And you're not going to do this. We're going to do it this way. And she's, like, trying to be logical about things and not being like, what? How am I supposed to? Like, she just took control. Mm-hmm. And I really like that. And even when she, like, meets up with him again, she can tell that this isn't you.
Yeah.
And, like, kept smacking him, which I like, because she does know that if it were really you, you wouldn't be saying these things.
Yeah, as soon as he starts to be like, I've been feeling a way about you, I was like, yeah, no. Doctor, like, he married River, and I don't think he's ever even said anything like that to her, so no, definitely not.
Right, and anytime River, like, they have their, like, flirty moments, but whenever she, like, gets too close or tries to kiss him, he is like, whoa, what is this? I'm 5. You can't kiss me? Gross, girls.
What was the other thing that... Oh, yeah, and Warwick Davis, as it turns out, being the Emperor, was a really nice touch. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Although him asking Clara to marry him, dude...
Bless you.
Excuse me, is this going to be a Song of Ice and Fire episode?
Let's hope.
You guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to want to go and find that one. But yeah, the fact that he was just like, yeah, I mean, we've only talked probably like 3 times so far, but I definitely could see, like, ruling with you. This man rules, like, universes.
He's the emperor of the galaxy, right?
Of thousands of galaxies.
Yeah. And
that doesn't feel like a sustainable model.
Well, he doesn't seem to enjoy it very much.
No.
It's like hiding out, wearing a little 1913 bomber jacket and little pilot's hat.
I don't understand why he can't just abdicate and they set up their own governments for each galaxy, because it doesn't seem like anybody thinks he was doing his job.
Look, people they might complain about having their power and, I don't have any time to myself. Ugh, they don't want to give it up.
That's true. That's true. Because, yeah, I just feel like, man, you were not doing what you were supposed to be doing. You don't like doing your job. And one guy ruling all of these galaxies, just it feels like that isn't something that could be sustained, because how can you possibly keep track of everything that's happening everywhere and what they all require? You can't.
Anyway, see, it's hard enough just to rule one country.
You know? Honestly, the United States should be like 4 countries. What we've decided to do here is a disaster. Doesn't work.
Clearly. I've been saying for years that it's too big, and people treat me like I'm, like, blasphemous. I'm like, look, it's too big.
It is. And clearly enough of us have totally different values and desires for the future of our country. Splitting up into multiples just seems to me like the logical choice.
Yeah.
But, I'm
going to go to whichever one has California.
I'm going to go to whichever one has healthcare.
California.
Likely. But they also have forest fires, so I don't know.
Maybe if they actually, have a functioning government that will take care of their country.
True.
It won't happen.
True.
Anyway, we're not political.
No, never, Sean, at all. Just
That's a reference to my birthday gift.
Guys, it was Jamie's birthday. She got a very special gift.
I did.
And
I got a very special message from Sean Astin, who I thought I was going to marry when I was 8 years old.
You were going to get married when you were 8 years old.
No, but I thought I was going to grow up and marry him. I was convinced, which is how 8-year-olds think. So yeah, it was too much. It was overwhelming. I still don't really know how to talk about it.
Yeah, it was a good time. Krisha sent me the reaction video.
Wait, what?
Jamie maybe fell apart a tiny bit.
I was not aware of this. I am not happy about it.
Sorry for blowing up your spot, Krista. I didn't know that it was a secret. But, there it is.
I am going to disown all of you. Expect actual garbage for gifts this year.
I mean, don't say all of you. I don't know who else she sent it to, and I didn't show it to anybody. I just watched the reaction video for my own enjoyment of you losing your mind. Because that was a good time. But, yeah, it wasn't like, I didn't post it somewhere and go,
I don't believe you.
Jamie, look at how she's losing her mind.
I think you're lying.
I'm not lying, but I am trying to make it sound like I'm lying, so that works.
Jason also took a video of me, and his sister was like, I want to see that reaction video, and I was like, no. All I did was cry. No.
Oops. Okay, so...
Moving on, before I disown you.
Nightmare in Silver is a weird name for this one.
This is written by Neil Gaiman, and that's a very Neil Gaiman-y title.
Okay. This is written by Neil Gaiman?
Yeah.
Does not feel dark enough for that. Okay. So, when we start off the landing, like I said, the kids are unimpressed because the thing that they thought they were going to be able to do here is not here, apparently. Then this dude with a fucking top hat pops out, which any dude that pops out with a top hat in a place like this is bad news.
It is there, it's just not functioning.
Right. He pops out and is like, well, actually, come with me. And then they come around the corner and it's like this really awesome looking like ruin.
I have to say, the idea of riding a roller coaster on a moon sounds awesome.
I disagree.
Imagine what it looks like.
Look, I'm afraid of heights, and I just don't feel like these things would coexist well.
It had gravity.
Yeah, but how convinced am I of that? I ride a roller coaster here on our old planet of Earth, and I still worry that maybe I'm going to go flying out of it.
That's part of the fun.
It is, but that's because I know for certain that everything is fine. If I'm on the moon, I don't know that. I don't have that comfort. It's just not really a sure thing. Anything could go wrong. I mean, just getting here went wrong. Just trying to arrive. It's gone already. Who knows what other things could go? There's cybermen living under the ground. I don't know about this gravity. And it turns out that he can turn it off. As we see later. Because he has that little thing that can let them float in the air and enjoy themselves.
That also seemed really fun.
But what if that went a little wrong and they just floated away?
Well, that is why I did not become an astronaut.
That's why.
One of many reasons. But one of the deciding factors was I don't want to end up floating away to my death.
Well, that is a concern that deserves that sort of consideration. And I think that more like I did an episode of Unsober about the ocean. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how like frightening the ocean can be. Just it's so vast and unknown in so many places. And space is like the ocean's big, bad grandfather.
Have you seen Gravity?
I have.
We went to see that in the theater. We saw it in IMAX and 3D. And it felt like we were in space with her. And I felt like I was having a panic attack the entire time I was watching it. Because I was like, this is literally what my fear was as a kid. Like when I was like, you know what? Maybe space isn't for me. And she's now living it in this movie. I loved the movie, but I was just terrified the whole time.
Yeah, I could understand that. I mean, they do a really good job, too. Even if you're not watching in like 3D or anything. Of making it all feel very immediate and threatening. So, yeah. No thanks. Yeah, I wanted to be an astronaut because I liked the idea of floating around. And then I wised up.
I mean, floating around in a space shuttle would be kind of fun. But I guess we could do that in one of those vomit comets. Like,
look, the main thing for me is growing up and learning about how lo-fi so much of what was going on in the space shuttle really was.
Yeah.
Like, if you guys want to know more, you can listen to that Unsober episode about space. Or I think it was one about the moon. And it turned out that, like, they just literally taped bags to their ass to shit into. And there's tons of bags of shit on the moon.
There are.
They didn't have, like, a special setup. There was nothing, like, techie about it.
Just
it was
like a bunch of fucking
bag
humans.
With fucking duct tape taped to their ass.
We went to the moon and left our shit.
Mm-hmm.
We are the worst.
In truth. We are the worst. So yeah, that, just, the idea of like floating around in the space shuttle sounds all fun and dandy. Until you realize that like there's bags of shit floating around also. Potentially vomit floating around also. Mm-hmm. All kinds of good stuff that you got to share your space with. No, thank you. Couldn't just have a toilet that you strapped yourself down to make sure you didn't float off the toilet?
Well, it's because you can't really, I don't know, it's something to do with like the weight differential. They had to be as light as possible. I've read a lot of stuff about the space program and, you know, they cut corners where they had to so that it would actually get to the moon. Mm-hmm. But that meant sacrificing something like a toilet.
Yeah, I just feel like we really, if we have to sacrifice a toilet, then maybe just scrap the idea. Maybe we don't deserve to get to the moon because we haven't figured this out.
I think they figured it out now.
Have they? What's the system now?
So. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have the faith
let's
you have
ask
in
Elon Musk. He's the only one in the United States that has anybody going to the space shuttle or to the space station.
He doesn't know anything. He isn't. He's just handing over checks.
True.
But anyway. All right. So this dude brings them to like part of this park that still exists and is not entirely defunct, but is very sad. And there is a chess game that you have to play against a cyberman. And the doctor sees the cyberman and panics because he thinks that this is like real and a whole trap. And he tells everybody to get down. And then we cut to the credits and we come back. And I really thought it was going to be a bit more than just play chess against this cyberman, which doesn't feel like an attraction so much as like an iPhone game. But that's what it is. And eventually becomes like the thing because the doctor winds up having to like play chess against himself. Mr. Clever. But yeah, this dude is like trying to be like, well, as we all know, there are no cybermen remaining. Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, okay, it can't have been as long ago as you claim if this dude is just sitting here in as good of repair as he is. And also, I mean, obviously on a show like this, you don't introduce a Cyberman and then not have a Cyberman anymore. But it is a matter of some time passing, actually, before we really like find out what's going on here. Because we have to wait to get the kids on their own. And it turns out that, like, the little boy... I don't know either of their names, BT Dubs. What are their names, you know?
Angie and Artie.
Okay. It turns out that neither of them... Well, no, not neither of them. That Archie plays... Artie?
Yeah.
Angela? Angie?
Angie.
Angie and Artie. It should have been Archie. That would have been easier. Angie and Artie. Fuck. Fuck! Guys, I'm so excited for this vacation coming up, man. I had one not that long ago, a short one, and I just really did too much during it, and I don't really have a plan during this one, which I think is best. And I thought I was, like, doing pretty well until this morning when Krista texted me about how I must be on vacation already because Dresden isn't up, and she was just double-checking, and I had edited Dresden, but I just never posted it, which normally, if something isn't up, it's usually just because I haven't been able to make the time to edit it yet for whatever reason. I went through the whole thing and edited it. I did it all. I did the work. Why would I have just not posted? What did I do that day? Questions that need answers. So what I'm saying is that I'm a mess, and apparently I do really need a break. Anyway, Artie?
Artie.
Yes. Oh, I'm such a genius. Artie plays chess at school. He's in the chess club. What a nerd, am I right? Steal his lunch money. Give him a swirly. That's a thing, right?
Sure, and Revenge of the Nerds.
Did you have a chess club in your school?
Probably. I don't know.
I don't think we did.
I feel like the clubs that we had... My school in Arizona, I don't remember there being a whole lot of clubs. There was probably drama club, but no. Nothing that, like, we were encouraged to join clubs, which I know, like, they say always looked good on your college applications or whatever. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in any clubs. I was in drama club in 9th grade at a different school.
I joined so many clubs because I got wise pretty quick to the fact that none of them did anything. There was the national, like, the Honor Society Club or whatever it was called. They had, like, the occasional meeting. Nothing ever. They didn't do anything. Key Club.
Oh, we did have that. What the hell was that?
Nothing. I asked everybody what it was, and nobody knew. I would show up. The meetings were just, like, these, like, hangouts. And a sort of like, yeah, probably we should get involved with planning prom or something. But that wasn't the prom committee. That wasn't, like, student government body. It was not anything that I could tell. If any of y'all had this at your school and it did something, please tell me. Because I suspect that there is supposed to be a function to Key Club, and that it had just passed so far by the wayside that it was like a legend. It no longer actually existed for any of us. Even the teachers. I straight up asked one of the teachers, what is Key Club? That was hosting one of the meetings, and she seemed really agitated that I asked and did not answer me. And honestly, it kind of made me feel better because it seemed clear that she just wanted to be able to be like, I do this as part of my, like, you know, my job description. Please don't ask any more of that than that of me. And I just wanted to be able to say that I was in Key Club for my resume to apply to colleges, but did not actually want more on my plate. So when I found out that I could be a part of it and nobody was actually going to want me to do anything for it, perfect. Exactly what I wanted. So when she acted that way after I asked, I never asked again, and I was perfectly happy about it.
I just looked it up and it says, Key Club is a student-led high school organization. Our members make the world a better place through service. In doing so, we grow as individuals and as leaders by answering the call to lead, summoning the courage to engage, and developing the heart to serve. That's also a lot of words about nothing.
Yeah, it sounds like what they're trying to say is like volunteer work.
Yeah.
No, we did not do any of that. I don't remember volunteering for anything. Unless there was, like, the occasional, like, stuff envelopes for something, and we'll pretend that that was service, which maybe that happened.
People also ask, what is the purpose of Key Club? Key Club aims to cooperate with school principals and teachers to provide high school students with invaluable experience in living and working together and to prepare them for useful citizenship. Our members develop initiative and leadership skills by serving their schools and communities.
I am so happy right now. Nobody knows what Key Club is for. That is what I'm learning.
This is from keyclub.org.
Keyclub.org is a shell corporation that's like there's something dirty going on. Nope, this is not real. I love it. Oh, that makes me so happy. Oops, sorry. I dropped my phone. But that, honestly, like, that does make me feel so much better. Because nobody seemed to know.
The
That's
Key Club
hilarious.
motto is caring, our way of life.
Yep. Okay. Oh.
I have to say, a lot of this feels like the jargon that we have at Starbucks.
Ooh. I could see that.
Our mission and values and, being a place for the community. Like, our goals seem to be the same.
As a Key Club.
As the Key Club. Inclusivity and caring.
Buzzword. Yeah.
Not to say anything against Starbucks, because I do believe that I work for a really exceptional company, but sometimes our verbiage reads like this, where I'm like, yeah, it sounds good. I'd like a little more detail.
Mm-hmm. Oh, now I understand why the teacher was kind of panicked when I asked.
They just didn't know how to answer.
They didn't. And, like, you could give her the official, like, Key Club info pamphlet, and apparently it would read like this, so that's not helpful. Shit, that's funny. Okay, anyway, so this kid is the first, like, is about to play the game, and doesn't the doctor start to be like, no, you don't want to make that move, but then he turns out to be wrong? About something?
No, I think he told Artie not to make that move because it was a false mate or something. I don't know chess.
Same.
I think the doctor knew that was going to be a bad move.
So he was right. Okay.
I think so.
I have the episode open in front of me, but frankly, I'm not going to go and find this moment exactly. Anyway, so what happens after this? This is such a strange series of events in this episode that I feel kind of about this one like I did about Crimson Horror, where things don't progress in a way that my brain makes a ton of sense of. They go out again after, like, doing this little thing in here and do the floaty around bit. They are about to leave because apparently, like, the whole point of coming here was for something that is no longer here. The doctor gets distracted because something is, like, catching his interest and there are weird bugs. And we find out later that they are cybermites, which look real creepy and gross. Like, it actually is kind of similar to the leech in Crimson Horror, the way that they are designed.
They look like little metal leeches.
Yeah.
Whereas that leech looked like some kind of weird lobster.
Yeah, that's true. It had those claw things. I forgot about that. I was just thinking about it as being like sort of sperm-shaped.
It was, but with arms.
Yeah, I forgot about the arms. What a weird design. I forgot that the kid trades a sandwich to be able to play. That's right. because he is supposed to be able to trade a copper or a penny or something.
Yeah, a penny.
And he's like, I haven't got that, but I do have a sandwich. And this dude is resetting the chessboard, and the Cyberman grabs him by the wrists, and as this dude is staring, all of these little mites come out of its eye sockets and crawl up his arm, and I hated it so much. This was like some like Matrix shit. Remember when they put the thing in his belly button?
No. I've only seen The Matrix once. It's been a while.
Okay. All right. Fine. Be that way. They all gather to a second later on Angie's cell phone.
Yeah.
What is it that they're doing in there? Remind me.
I think they're maybe just trying to gather information.
Is that it? Okay. I thought maybe they were like attracted to the tech or something. I don't know what I thought. But it's a real creepy image. Any time that you've got lots of like small things that crawl and you create a crowd of them, that's a no from me, dog. I do not like the look of that. It's like a major ick factor. It doesn't matter if they're like actual bugs or metal or what. I don't like it.
Yeah, and the way that they move.
Mm-hmm.
It's like reminiscent of like silverfish or whatever, and I just think silverfish are one of the creepiest things ever.
Oh, it is reminiscent of silverfish. Good call.
I hate them.
Yeah, they're awful. There's almost something about the way they move in this that makes it feel like they were done with like a claymation or a stop motion or something.
Yeah, kind of.
And I think that works really well. I think that makes them so much more like yucky. That's part of why watching The Mummy was such a bad experience for me the first time. Do you remember that with the fucking scarabs?
Yes.
Ah! Even just thinking about it right now, I'm agitated. Sorry, guys. This'll happen to me. I will be the one to bring up a subject, and then I can't stop thinking about it after. Like, my brain needs to work through the fact that this is something that I decided to do to myself, and I guess I just need to deal with the consequences.
So you've worked in coffee places. Mm-hmm. Whenever coffee beans spill on the floor and you step on them, that reminds me of The Mummy.
That never occurred to me, but thanks for that.
Crunch.
I'm really glad I don't work at a fucking coffee place anymore. Ugh. I'm going to have to mention that to Owen because there's a huge acorn. What are they? Oak tree. I was about to say an acorn tree, but that's not untrue. I suppose you could say that.
Yeah.
That grows on our street, and Owen has, like, every fall, he really enjoys driving in such a way that he can crush all of the acorns as he's driving over them because it does, like, a very satisfying crunching sound, like bubble wrap, kind of.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I told him that you, likened that to the bugs in The Mummy, if that would make it better or worse for him. I can't decide if he would like that or hate it. For me, I would hate it, but I don't know that he has quite the same reaction to bug stuff that I do. I don't think he really does. He doesn't like bugs, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't, kind of freak the fuck out like I do. Bugs are not... I can deal with spiders, because spiders and I are on the same side. Fuck bugs. But bugs... Mm-mm. They show up in spots they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Ugh. The worst is when you think that you've just got a strand of hair tickling your neck or something. And you reach up and it turns out that it's a bug and you are never going to feel safe again for the next year.
No. It doesn't matter how many showers you take.
Yep.
Yeah.
The worst. So, okay, back to this. Clara is walking around with Porridge, which is the name of the little man that seemed to be operating the Cyberman puppet. But as we know, it is actually alive. But he doesn't know that. He says he's talking to her about, fighting the Cybermen. And the fact that they, were able to constantly upgrade and adapt. And it's hard to fight an army that uses your army for spare parts. Which, that is kind of a fucked up way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, so how did you win? And he points out to this, like, black hole, kind of. There used to be a galaxy there called the Tiberian Galaxy that there had been 1 billion people. And now there aren't. And there are also no more Cybermen. And he says, I feel like a monster sometimes. And she says, why? Because she doesn't understand that he is the Emperor. And so likely gave the order to do this thing. But he replies, because instead of mourning 1 billion trillion dead people, I just feel sorry for the poor blighter who had to press the button to blow it all up. Which is himself.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the fact that it didn't even really work, and they're still here, is embarrassing. You know? Like, can you imagine making that sort of sacrifice and having to tell yourself that at least you got it done, and then you find out that you didn't?
Well, and then there's the wrinkle of the fact that he's at this place and he's using a Cyberman as a puppet to, like, play games with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is your enemy. Why are you using his shell as a puppet? That, especially when you know that the Cybermen can adapt.
Yeah, true. It doesn't really hold up. It's fine, but it is a strange choice. It is sort of like, to me, I guess the comparison that I'm making is like, and don't get me wrong, this doesn't really, like, quite work. But it is sort of weird that actual Nazis were a real and horrible thing that was one of the worst periods in our history. And they still exist, and they are real and horrible now. And yet, so many video games, it's like, oh, we're gonna kill and fight Nazis. Fun. Which is honestly pretty fucked up. They're still out there, you know? And they were responsible for millions of deaths.
Yeah.
But we're going to make a game out of defeating them. Which, you know, really it comes down to we're making a game out of war, which is a whole other conversation. But it does sort of remind me of that a little bit.
When everybody has what they consider a common enemy, I suppose that it's easy to say, okay, let's make a video game and we're going to be killing Nazis. Because we should be killing Nazis.
We all, I thought, agreed that Nazis are terrible.
Yeah. Thought that was what we were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much for some people.
But now the fact that we're saying to kill Nazis means that we have taken on a liberal agenda.
Oh, yes. Well, not political.
You know.
Political.
That's what Jamie's trying to convince Mr. Aston of, everybody. Because he insinuated that the name of the show made him think of the UN. And that maybe we were doing something strange and political over here, which I maintain is factually accurate.
Right. Well,
but Jamie is trying to convince him that that's not actually true. So
we're not focused on politics, but that doesn't mean we don't live in the world where we're going to talk about it too. It's not the central focus of our shows. It just happens to come up a lot.
I mean,
because everything is politics. There's no central anymore. It's all good or bad.
She's really trying, guys. Meanwhile, don't check my Twitter. My show Twitter is just me screaming about fucking cops. So
I wonder if he thought it was something to do with the UN because the U and the N in unspoiled are capitalized.
Probably. Which, what does he think? We spoiled the UN?
If only.
What is that?
If only we had that kind of power.
Okay, so at this point, the doctor, he had told the kids, they set up, like, beds for them? On
couches.
These, like, moth-eaten old couches in the fucking... I am sorry. I am not laying down on that. You aren't giving me a blanket from around here to put over my body. And I'm sure not putting my bare head down here either. No.
We should have known.
Gave me the heebie-jeebies.
We should have known that something was going to happen to the kids when he didn't have them go to bed in one of the many, many bedrooms that are on the TARDIS.
Yeah, there's not a good reason for that at all.
Here, kids, we're going to go explore. You lay down here and just take a nap.
Just, even though we're on an alien planet, which definitely doesn't seem like super conducive to you trying to fall asleep. And, there's lots of strange, unknown things around you that you would be extremely curious about, I'm sure. And also, like, a defunct amusement park ripe for fucking lawsuits that you could go and injure yourselves in, even if we didn't have Cybermen to worry about. Yeah, that I would love to see. This is the kind of thing I would love to see. Like I said in the intro, one of these outings go according to plan. Like, how come we can't have a really cool thing happen in a park that's functional? And watch them ride a friggin' roller coaster, man.
Budget.
I guess. Budget. Ruining all my fun. Story of my life.
Also, people would probably complain, like, God, nothing even happened in that episode.
But you don't have to, you could still have there be Cybermen. Just have them be biding their time in a fucking actual functioning park. Have there be, a slowly escalating disappearance of various children. I feel like that would be real spooky, actually. No?
It would.
I'm getting nothing from you. I can't tell whether you like this idea or hate it or what. What's going on over there? Do you even hear me, Jamie?
I'm thinking about how they would make that work, and all I come back to is that they wouldn't have the budget to, have those. I really feel like maybe that could have been the initial idea, but, how are we going to have a functioning roller coaster? Do we have the CGI for that? I mean, they made the kids float in the air. I feel like you could use that same. It'd be pretty simple, right? We see the roller coaster from far away, but very pointedly never get close to it.
True. All right. Well, what do I know? Yeah, it's just it's such a tease. I felt a little bit like the kids when I saw it. I was like, oh, this is rad. Oh, but this is nothing.
I have more of a gripe of why this little girl is not more impressed with the experience that she's having. She's laying there and ugh, I'm bored.
She sucks.
This is stupid.
As much as I'm relieved that the kids weren't solely responsible for something terrible happening. It's not like they opened the door they weren't supposed to open. I mean, she does wander off when she's not supposed to, but this shit was already going on. She is... They wrote her as, being really petulant in a way that, in context of where they are and what they're doing, doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a constant... You're not my mom.
Yeah.
And it just feels so weird in this context. If this were at their home, then that's fine. But you're in outer space. There's nothing about the way anybody's behaving or the overall vibe of how anyone is treating you that makes that reaction make sense to me.
Also, she's the one who blackmailed Clara into taking her on a time travel adventure.
Right? Apparently it meant so much to you to come that you were willing to fucking, threaten to out her. But now you're going to be a little bitch about it.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. And I'm sure that, some people are listening and they're just yeah, well, kids, they suck. And this is what I mean. This is why I don't like kids in stories like this. Because you can literally make them just suck, and that feels like something that would happen. Because kids are annoying. And, look, hashtag not all kids, and kids can be really rad, but when they are written like this, there's only one way that I feel like we're supposed to react, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. And that's to write her off as just being like a typical spoiled teenager who can't be pleased with anything. And it's kind of unfair, honestly, to teens to be constantly like written in this way. Sometimes I feel like, not that, to a degree they don't deserve it, that this is a real thing. I remember being insufferable at times as a teen.
Oh my God, when my dad took me to the Grand Canyon, I was 13. I was obviously too young and too much of a brat to appreciate it. I think I whined about, how long is it going to take to get there? And then we got there and I was like, great. Cool.
Oh, you suck.
I did. And now I'm like, even when I was 17 and my mom was all excited because she came up for my graduation and she's like, we're going to go to the Grand Canyon. And I was like, I've been there. Like, now I would appreciate it. But as a teenager, not at all. I was just insufferable about it. It's a fucking Grand Canyon. Like, why could I not appreciate that?
But you didn't ask to go, right?
I didn't ask to go. I was forced to go, which was another problem.
So, while it does suck that you sucked, at least you didn't push for the thing in the first place and then be an asshole about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that I was a total bitch during a trip with my family to New York. But I didn't realize at the time that I was experiencing one of my first depressive episodes. So my mother was getting increasingly frustrated at my lack of reaction to anything. And it was simply because I was not feeling anything. I wasn't having a reaction because I was literally not having a reaction inside my body. And I didn't understand that. And it made me feel bad that I was disappointing her. And that made me feel shame. And that made me withdraw even more. And so that was what was going on there. It was not me just being like a pain in the ass. It was like a neurological experience.
Right.
And I'm sure that that's the case with like a lot of teens, is that they're actually going through something that they don't understand or have the words for. And we tend to write off as being like, oh, just more drama, instead of really looking at the fact that maybe there's something genuine happening here that they need help with and don't have the vocabulary to explain to themselves or to us. But that's a whole other conversation. So after all of that, I'm going to say again, Angie sucks. So she goes off and leaves her brother, who eventually is like, I'm going to get up and turn the lights back on because I just, want to see what's going on, not because I'm scared or anything. And as he's walking around, there's tons of models of these like aliens that just look like probably the costume department just got some stock out and put it somewhere so that they could use it. And he makes his way over to the light switch and turns all the lights on and seems much calmer. And then all of a sudden a Cyberman comes up behind him, puts his hand over his mouth. And then we see later that he got. And there's like a weird sort of switch attached to his head. What would we call that? Panel?
Well, on the kids, it's not as elaborate as it is on the doctor or the other guy.
I noticed that. Is that part of, like, why is it that they're after kids specifically?
Because they make the kids cyber planners, which is, I guess, something that was a thing in previous iterations. And they chose to make the kids the cyber planners because their imaginations are greater than what adults have. I don't know if they made kids cyber planners in previous versions, or if they decided in this, taking advantage of what we have in front of us. Oh, the kids, their imaginations are far greater than what, these average adult humans are going to give us. Mm-hmm. And that'll make the ability to come up with an idea for how we can improve our cybermen that much greater.
I like to think of myself as a cyber planner.
But they just have these like little, it's kind of like a switch or a little just a little device on the side of their heads.
Yeah. Yeah, because the doctor has, like, this full-blown, like, panel thing taking up, like, one whole side of his head, and the other dude's, like, had part of his head replaced. That guy's a mess.
I have not watched a whole lot of Star Trek, but in the trivia it says, according to the behind the scenes, the Cybermen were redesigned for this episode and got a variety of new abilities and features. These new Cybermen share several similarities with the Borg of Star Trek franchise, which were in turn originally based somewhat on the Cybermen.
Oh.
And the only thing I know about the Borg is that they were a big enemy that Captain Picard at one point was sort of taken over by the Borg, and I remember seeing a picture of him with like a bunch of like tech on his face.
Okay. Huh. The Borg. Yeah, I still haven't watched any of that. So, this kid gets got. Meanwhile, I keep wanting to call her Charlotte. She just reminds me so much of Charlotte from Sex and the City, the overall look of her. And her name is just close enough. Clara is off with the one woman who has, by the way, told us by now that this is like a punishment platoon.
Yeah.
And she has been sent here for failing to follow orders. So she becomes pretty, like, aggressive eventually about wanting to follow orders and not Clara's orders, despite the fact that the doctor has used his psychic paper to convince them all that he is, like, an official. Apparently, this lady's not really buying that story regarding Clara.
Well, she buys the story that he is part of the Imperial Council.
Right.
But I think she's just not so on board with him taking her rank away and giving it to Clara.
Right.
And putting Clara in charge.
Which, I'm not mad about that. We've talked about this many times. The doctor's swooping in and deciding how things are going to be. And not really, like, talking to anybody or consulting them or getting them to agree to the thing. And as much as I really do like Clara, there's nothing to indicate that she knows enough about this situation to be better at the job than this lady. She winds up being, and we have faith that she will be because we know her and that she's one of the good guys. But, just going with the information as is, it just sort of seems incredibly presumptuous. So I'm not super upset with her for feeling a bit salty about it.
However, he does learn that they will, because when he gives the captain ranking to Clara, he tells her to not let them blow up the planet and to get somewhere defensible.
Right.
So he obviously knows that their protocol would be to blow up this planet. And if he hadn't given the control to Clara, they all would be dead.
So my argument is always communication. And if he was able to talk to them about the fact that they, instead of just basically coming in and being like, you're going to stop them from doing the thing, you're going to be the one that's in charge, they're going to listen to you, and was like, hey, I think that there's going to be a way for us to deal with this without actually having to resort to that and basically committing like a murder-suicide, I would at least have appreciated that attempt, and then being like, oh, so you still don't want to listen to me. Okay, Claire's in charge. But we don't actually see him attempt to communicate. He just comes in and says how it is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, I just want to see him, like, even just pretend that he's going to take somebody into consideration and let them be part of the conversation.
Well, the last time he did that was when he ran into those junkers, those scavengers, and said, okay, you help me do this, and I'll give you this. And they immediately started trying to break apart the TARDIS.
But he was lying to them.
Well, he was. But they didn't know that.
Jaime, that's not a good example. Yeah, he was lying to them. Whatever. But he's just saying, like, I want some, like, in good faith communication.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
No, that's just not how he operates.
I know it's not. I know. So Clara is talking to this woman, and she's showing Clara the layout of the defunct amusement park. And she points out this spot called Natty Longshoe's Comical Castle. And it is a genuine castle with an actual moat. And this is where Clara is like, all right, perfect. This is where we're going to hole up and make our stand. Meanwhile, the doctor goes into the room with all of the first he goes into the room that has the chess game set up, and he begins to realize that these little mites are around. He finds one that's like dead, kind of, I guess. It's not like is this the thing that winds up infecting him? Does it come back? Because he's looking at it in his hand, and he's trying to find the frequency in order to follow it. And he does, but I'm trying to remember exactly what happens, because he gets got here. And I can't remember if it's the mite that does it, or if it's somehow... I'm trying to see.
He talks to Webley, that guy. The doctor tells him they can only convert humans, and he's not human, and Webley tells him that's no longer true.
We've adapted. I'm trying to find them.
He throws cybermites on the doctor, which incorporate him into the cyber network. Okay.
Oh, yeah, here it is. He tosses them. Because I forgot that he tosses some, because I remembered seeing them climbing up the doctor's vest. Yeah. And I was like, was that from inside his pocket? Because he put the one that he found in his pocket.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly. I know it has something to do with them, but I couldn't remember exactly. I do pay attention, guys, but I don't remember every single detail. That's why I have these notes.
Well, and some of the details, it doesn't really, matter in the end. It's just me being curious, trying to recap properly. But it's not like it particularly... Whatever it was that winds up getting him doesn't necessarily matter. But yeah, so this version of him that pops up, it's like this dual personality thing that begins to happen. There's like a sort of vibe from him initially about this that makes you feel like he's kind of excited that this happened. Like his reaction initially is like, oh shit, amazing brain processing power, unfamiliar pulmonary activity. Like there's
That's the Mr. Clever saying that stuff.
Okay. Because he doesn't do the voice yet when he's saying this stuff. So right. It wasn't quite distinct enough for me to be certain whether it was or not. And I could see the doctor can be a real weirdo about enjoying bad things because he's just delighted at the novelty of it because he's bored. So there was a part of me that was like, okay, look, you did get got by the cybermen. But it seems like you're kind of excited because you didn't think this could happen to you. And maybe it's just the fun of being surprised, you know? But okay, if it was Mr. Clever, then that is that. It could be a little A and B as well.
He calls himself that after he realizes how powerful this non-human brain is. Mm-hmm. And he, scans through all of the Doctor's incarnations. When he realizes everything, he says, fantastic. And I think that's when his voice, the way he speaks, starts to change with that word.
Okay.
And that is a call out to the Ninth Doctor.
How so?
That the Ninth Doctor always said things were fantastic. That was his little catchphrase.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't remember that. I did not notice it, I guess. Huh. And I like that one. I'm surprised I don't remember that.
Later on, he says, Alonzi.
That one I did notice. He says it with such disdain. Alonzi. And it's like this real, you fucking idiot, as he says it. It's funny. Pretentious much. So yeah, this goes back and forth into this sort of argument that he has with himself. Mm-hmm.
Now, you know how we've discussed before, how weird it must be to be an actor?
Yeah.
And the weird shit you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know what this was like for Matt Smith to be throwing himself around, being one character, and then throwing himself in another direction and being the Doctor, and then throwing himself around. Like, he's just so physical anyway.
Yeah.
That I would just love to see, like, the dailies. No CGI on it yet. No finishing touches. I just want to see him performing that. Mm-hmm. Because it must have been so fucking weird.
Have you seen Dr. Sleep?
No, not yet. I don't know. I mean, should I? I've seen The Shining once.
I loved it.
Really?
I watched it last night.
I do love Ewan McGregor.
I was shocked. I watched it kind of on a whim because somebody mentioned something about it on a podcast that I was listening to, and they made it sound like sort of interesting in a very specific way that I won't spoil. That movie has a ton of mental magic in it, and it's the sort of thing that you're completely in it when you're watching it, and you're believing every second of it. Like, the performances are frankly unbelievable. I am kind of salty at how underrated it is and that it took me this long to watch it because nobody really recommended it to me.
Yeah.
It deserved more attention than it got. And there's a little girl who is particularly incredible. And the mental magic, it's the kind of thing that every now and then I would sort of stop and think about what this is actually, what it is we're really seeing, which is a person pretending to fight themselves. And just how, like, when you step out of it and look at it that way, it is ridiculous. But when you have everything added, it's this, like, incredibly tense, upsetting moment that really works. And, yeah, if y'all have if you like The Shining at all, it does not matter. The Shining is relevant only, I would say, in about like 20% of the movie. I feel like you can get away with never even having seen it, and you'll still mostly get what's going on. And I really low-key hope that this is not the last of the stories set in that universe at this point, because it was so interesting to watch. And the villain is fucking terrifying. She is really scary. So that's my recommendation for Dr. Sleep. I thought that it's very long, as so many Stephen King book-based movies are.
Yeah, well, it's not 4 hours long, right? Or
it's 2.5.
Because it ended up being, what, really like 6 hours?
Something like that.
Because it was like 3 hours each movie, pretty much.
It's 2.5 hours, and to me, it felt like it needed to be. Okay. I thought that it was a well-told story, and I don't think that there's a lot that I would be able to cut and feel like the story remained enough, you know? Okay. But yeah, so that was something that I was thinking about last night, is just the idea of somebody fighting with themselves like he does here, and just like, yeah, watching it and how strange it is, and having to like be completely sincere in the moment while you're being ridiculous. And sell it. And that's not easy, man.
Yeah, acting is weird.
Yeah. So then we cut to that poor woman who's all alone and is with the army, but meets a cyberman, and she's like being told that they think they saw one, and she's like panicking and says something like, "I want to hide. Can I hide?" And I was like, "Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry. I wish you could." I appreciate that you're honest about how that's just what you would like to do, please. And the Cyberman, like, it doesn't even just get her. It grabs her by the face, which just seems so unnecessary. Rude, you know? Yeah. Like, come on, man. It's her face.
Oh,
I thought you needed that part.
Why do they need that part? They cover it all up in their cyber suits.
But not completely. Like, the ones that they've got right now, their faces are still there.
Well, those are the cyber planners.
So she wouldn't be a planner?
No.
I mean, why does the Doctor get to be?
Because he's so smart. That brain is useful.
The other guy isn't very smart. Why did he get to be?
I think they needed a first one. I don't know.
He just got lucky.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of hoping that maybe, like, they had improved their technology enough that they could just do it this way from now on. And that the cyber planners would be a bit more intricate, but that you could still make them all work with this kind of addition.
I think that maybe that's where it could have gone if the Doctor hadn't fought the way that he did. If the Cyberman was able to completely take over his brain, then they would see, like, oh, you know what? We're really effective like this. Like, maybe we don't need to have the helmet. We can just have the suit with all of our weaponry, but all this technology on our faces.
Although, it does seem to fly in the face of what the Cybermen stand for. Yeah. Which is that,
upgrading humans.
Yeah, and our bodies are, frankly, one of our, biggest weaknesses. They're just such a disaster that I don't see them wanting to preserve the body. That doesn't really work long term. Okay, fine. So eventually, the Doctor figures out that they have that, weakness due to gold, which I don't remember this. Was this in another episode, or was this in, before I watched an episode?
It's not something that I was aware of. Cleaning fluid and gold, it hasn't been mentioned in any of the cyber episodes we've seen.
Okay. Because I was, really confused by that. I was like, I don't remember them ever talking about gold being a weakness. And I might be wrong. I might have missed something. If I did, do tell. But it was a very sudden moment of him just grabbing the golden ticket, slapping it to his face, and declaring victory that was incredibly confusing to me. And as we find out, it's not victory, because they can adapt so quickly. But initially, I was just like, all right, I missed something, and rewound, thinking that it got mentioned maybe earlier in the scene. I didn't want to rewind and watch the whole thing. But, no, it wasn't. So, all right, good. So then we go to this woman who's like, oh, well, I got put here because I refused to obey orders, but I can make up for that. I will live for the Empire, fight for the Empire, die for the Empire. This is Captain Alice Ferry, Imperial ID 19 Delta 13B, activate, and she's walking away with this fucking thing to, blow up the planet. And then she gets zippity zapped. And it was a Cyberman, apparently, who saw her from the side and got her from, several floors away. Which, honestly, thanks, Cyberman. I don't like being on your side with this, but, I guess I am. That was, I kind of was hopeful at first that it was one of her people. That they realized what it was she was about to do. And they were like, oh, no, sweetie, no. We're definitely not going to let you fucking kill all of us. And I was a little disappointed that it turned out it was not somebody on her side. It was a bad guy. Because I'm down for the moral quandary of whether or not to kill one of your own people in order to preserve everybody's lives.
We covered Band of Brothers, Krista and I, and it's based on, true story. There was this guy, his name was Captain Spears. He wasn't a captain at the beginning, and there were all these rumors that were swirling around about him. He wasn't in the same group as the guys we were following at first. And one of the rumors was that he killed one of his own men. And as the book explains, he did. But he did it because that guy was dangerous. He was putting them all at risk. And when it was reported to his higher up that he killed one of his own men, he was not rewarded for it, but he wasn't in trouble for it because the guy was actually a danger. He was drunk and supposed to be on duty, and he was putting their lives at risk. So it's, it's like a weird gray area where you're like, I should think this guy sucks, right? And yet I'm like, well, I guess.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do. If the guy wasn't following orders and was running around drunk,
Yep.
You know, there's Nazis out there. You're giving away your position. So, yeah, I mean, I think those aren't the kinds of questions that this show wants to make people think about.
Definitely not. But I was still sort of hopeful. I was, because she was just being awful, too. And the whole thing is like, I can make up for it. And so really, it's not even about thinking that you're doing the right thing. It's purely your ego wanting to feel like you're fixing your reputation. Like, get over it. You fucked up that time. You're fucking up this time. You're not making up for anything. You're just killing a bunch of people and then smiling about it, which is really not a great place to be as a human being. But, yeah. So, she does this and everybody's just like, oh my God. And I will say that there's this like badge on, because you were talking about like the whole Star Trek thing, on Clara's dress, and the way that the design of her dress is, that does look very Star Trek-y.
I can see that.
You know what I mean?
It's the badge that the Doctor took from that woman and put on her.
The collar, it all feels like maybe it was purposeful. The combination of everything.
If the trivia is correct, that basically Neil Gaiman was sort of making nods to Star Trek, then that would make sense.
Yeah. So this is when she finally comes up to and finds the Doctor and begins to realize that he is not himself. And she's real, just like, he says, good news, bad news. So good news, I kidnapped the cyberplanner, and right now I'm sort of in control of this cyberman. Bad news, the cyberplanner is in my head, and different kind of bad news. The kids are... It's complicated. And I'm like, yeah, you don't want to say it like that, though, buddy. That's for a Facebook relationship status. That's not for talking about the well-being of the children that she is responsible for. And yeah, he is trying to explain what's going on while dodging in and out of being controlled by this other part of him, the cyber planner part aspect. And he tells them all that he wants them to tie him down so that he can play chess, keep his hands free, but the rest of him has to be immobilized. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's where we go next, is the big bad chess match. Which he does say to Clara eventually, well, you know, hopefully everything will work out and I'll win this chess match. And then he promised to let us all go, which he'll probably just, you know, break his promise and then kill us all anyway. And she's just like, what? That's not what I wanted to hear. And he's like, yeah, I realized as I was saying it, that wasn't really super encouraging or helpful. Sorry about that. It was one of those moments. And also this other version of him is telling her about how she's the impossible girl. Mm-hmm. And she does not know what that means. Why would you? He does not actually get around to telling her. He just says that is how the Doctor sees her, mm-hmm. and is sort of gloating over how she's like, how he hasn't told her all of this already, and otherwise gets interrupted before he can ever say. And when she brings this up with the Doctor later when he's back to himself, right? But I feel like he doesn't tell her.
Yeah, he doesn't explain.
So, but I'm trying to see, because eventually she leaves him alone, and we do see him continuing to talk to himself while she is off figuring out how to defend this castle, which they like yank some wiring out and drop it into the moat so that it becomes electrified, mm-hmm. which is pretty good. I enjoy that a great deal. We have the scene where she comes back to talk to the Doctor and can't tell if it's him or not because she's got that detonator that she's in control of now.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get it from her, but she can tell it's not him because he's being too emotionally vulnerable and flirty, but like in an outright way. And
that's when she tells him to tell her something that only the doctor knows, because he says he's not the cyberplanner, that the cyberplanner is like hibernating or asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he then says that he's falling in love with her or something. Mm-hmm. And he moves in to give her a kiss and she slaps him.
Yeah.
And she knows that's not him.
It's a good time. Later on, she asks if he thinks she's pretty, and he says, no, you're too bossy and your nose is all funny.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got, like, a perfect nose. So, sir, I would thank you to keep your fucking commentary on that to yourself. But this is when she goes and looks out the window, and she sees, like, the Cybermen army out there. It is a lot of them. Like, there's enough of them that they could just walk into the moat and get electrified and pile up in the moat and then walk over a bridge of their own bodies in the moat to get to the castle.
Oh, like the White Walkers did.
Yeah, exactly, like that. So then we see, like, these dudes that have sort of become inspired by her leadership, and they are going out there with their guns and a lot of determination and are pretty psyched about fighting these things. And they have these guns that are insane.
It's just one gun, right?
I guess it is just the one that they have, and it's like really effective. But it only has a certain amount of charge before it needs to be recharged. And you can't just like pull the trigger and like fan out like you would with like a machine gun in an action movie and take a bunch of them down. You kind of just get to like zap the one.
Yeah.
And then the next one, you have to wait for a second and get that one too. And the Cybermen explode in this really gross way that is so... It's like, their whole thing is supposed to be that the human body is like they're upgrading from it, but they look very like meaty when they explode.
Well, they explode and it's all red.
Yeah, it feels meaty. I don't enjoy it. And I do find it hilarious that the doctor is playing this chess game that he sort of admitted himself is nothing to be relied on in any way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Like, why are we still doing this then? He's sidelined in this episode, actually, now that I think about it. Everybody else is the one doing stuff, and he's the one that's kind of not.
Maybe it's to keep the cyberplanner distracted with this game.
You think?
Yeah.
Is that it?
I feel like because they're battling for this like 0.2 whatever percent of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor is actively like trying to keep him from doing anything worse by playing this game. He's focused on, okay, we're battling for control of my brain, and he's like negotiating it the whole time. Well, how about with this and you let the kids go? And so the cyberplanner is not focused on what's going on outside or trying to make that, upgrade those Cybermen even further with what he now knows.
So the doctor, the cyberplanner in his head, is the one that's in charge of everything.
He seems to be. Like, it seems like he activated something to make them all come up from underground.
Okay. I didn't realize... I thought that this was them just, like, executing a plan that they had in place already. I didn't realize that he was supposed to have been the trigger for it happening now. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, because otherwise, why would they be under there for so long? Nobody knew they were there.
Well, they had said that they needed children. So I thought that there was something, like, about them being here that was the real thing.
Let me look at the thing about the children specifically, because it's explained.
So he's like... I'm pulling extra processing power, 3 million. How long do you think it's going to take us to solve it? I'm just pulling in the local resources. But he's saying this as the Cybermen outside who are about to attack Clara and company all freeze and come to a complete stop. And he's implying that something the doctor did is what brought them to a stop. So I guess you're right. He's saying you don't have the processing power. But it's sort of weird that, like, I thought that the point of this was that they were all able to function separately, that they weren't, like, all run by a mother ship, which I guess is what is happening now.
So Clara puts that cable in the water. They drop the cable in the water, and then the Cybermen start to cross, and they start getting electrocuted. And while the doctor's playing this game, inside his mind, the cyberplanner awakes the legions of Cybermen hidden in the barracks. So he wakes them up.
Okay.
So yeah, I think he's in control of them. And then when they start getting electrocuted, he instills a patch to their programming so that they start to be able to, like, not be knocked out by that.
Gotcha. So he's like, he's trying to give them a virus, and they're trying to upgrade.
Yeah, because there's a Cyberman that most of them are getting electrocuted, but then one of them upgrades itself, and then that patch that one made spreads to the ranks. So maybe the Cyberplanner didn't make that patch, but he is the one who woke them.
Okay. So everybody else, they freeze. They get Clara and friends get out of there, and the doctor is fighting with himself. First, he has the sonic screwdriver out that he's using to activate a pulsar, and then he has to put the pulsar on his hand and use it on his face. And so his hand is like going towards his face, but his self is trying to stop him from doing it. Well, it's not his self, but the other one. And he just basically smashes himself in the face with it. And then when he removes the pulsar, all of the, like, equipment that had been on his face is totally gone.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when Clara says, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And he says, "No, you're short and bossy and your nose is all funny." And I was just like, I can't even believe what I'm hearing. And this is the point at which Angie is just like, well, how about you ask how to activate this thing that explodes the planet? Ask Porridge, because he's obviously the Emperor. Couldn't you tell? Am I the only one paying attention? And I was like, look, she says he looks the same. They just made him a bit taller. No. He did not look the same. He looked like Barrowman. That's what he looked like when he was a statue. I straight up sort of wondered if we weren't going to find out that the Emperor of all of these galaxies was him. Because he's apparently still alive, like, out there, you know? And he really seems like the kind of guy that could be... I know you're not elected emperor, but, you know, like, he could find his way into being emperor of many, many galaxies, and I wouldn't be surprised at all.
That would have been delightful.
Right? So, yeah, when she's like, yeah, it's him, and he looks pretty much the same, I was like, no, not even a little bit. I am not buying it that she would have put this together. Not even a tiny bit. I don't dislike the twist. Mm-hmm. But the fact that she has put these pieces together that really didn't fit in the first place, I call total nonsense on that.
And we don't get to see the coin, which she says, you know, he's on the coin as well. We don't get to see that. And maybe on a coin, it would look more like him.
Maybe. But yeah, that's what we've got. So, finally, he says... Oh, okay, in order to do this thing, all I have to do is say, and then he says it. And I was like, man, but you don't know that they're, like, ready for you yet. And there's only a minute and a half on the clock before it goes off. Maybe, just wait a second.
Yeah, call first, then set the detonator.
Right? And he's able to get them all out of there and into his, like, throne room really quickly. So it works out. But for a second, I was just like, what? Why are you doing this, buddy? What are you doing? Why are you just setting it off right now? they have all just been completely translocated, and the Cybermen walk on into the room they had all been in a second earlier and see this box sitting there. Meanwhile, in the throne room, they're watching the planet on a giant screen, and I guess it's not just a screen. Is it like an actual window in the ship?
Seems like, yeah.
Because the ship, like, everything shakes when the explosion happens. And Porridge is like, well, I guess my little vacation's over. This sucks. I have to go back to doing my dumb job that I hate. And then when Clara says, well, you don't have to be lonely, he's like, oh, I don't have to be lonely. Thank you for pointing that out. Will you marry me? And Angie, for her part, is mystified at the fact that Clara says no.
Yeah.
She's like, dude, really? Like, you could be queen of all of the galaxies. You don't say no to that. What are you doing? But Clara is very sensible. And it's just like, I don't want to rule 1,000 galaxies. I'm good. Thanks, though. I mean, no offense, dude. You did just make the job sound really bad. I don't know why you thought that anybody would want to hop into that little car with you and go for that ride when you just, like, lamented how terrible it is and have been in hiding for years. But, yeah. He the whole way that Angie reacts, I was like, please don't ask Angie to marry you, dude. I really hope you don't. And he does not.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how the age thing worked in his galaxy. Who knows how, like, and then he looks at the doctor and is like, I should have all of you guys executed, actually. If I was a proper emperor, I would definitely do that. But, of course, he does not. And they all pile into the TARDIS as he sits down, looking very sad at the fact that back to work.
Yeah.
And the doctor thanks the kids for coming and gives Angie a new phone because hers, I guess, got eaten by cyber midges. Mites, that's the one. They get sent off, and I was kind of surprised. I wondered if they weren't going to just, like, be around. But, no, they basically just get dropped off. And Clara comes over and just says goodnight in this sort of awkward moment. She thanks him for taking them out, getting them out alive, whatever you were doing for the Cybermen. There's this weird pause. They look at each other, and then she just goes, good night. And I was like, all right, I guess this has become so routine for you. Just like getting away with by the skin of your teeth. These kids are going to need therapy, by the way. And she says, I'll see you next Wednesday. And the doctor's like correcting her as she's leaving. Like, well, maybe next one of the Wednesdays. And then he's talking about her, a mystery wrapped in an enigma, squeezed into a skirt that's just a little bit too tight. And then he smiles to himself and looks utterly shocked at his own behavior. And I was like, sir, first of all, if you think that skirt is too tight at all, you need to live a little.
Yeah, I feel like that was
pretty conservatively.
I feel like that was a line that Neil Gaiman wrote that would have applied better to Amy Pond than Clara. Clara wears these classic little dresses.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to say that are just skirts that are just a little bit too short, which might have still not really applied, but better than tight. She has yet to wear a tight skirt, except in the first time we meet her when it's not this Clara, when it's Oswin. Mm-hmm. That dress was tight.
Yeah.
Nothing she's worn since has been.
Yeah, she's always dressed pretty practically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an odd line that it felt like we just had to make him say this to acknowledge that he finds her attractive or that he's looking at her in that way. But I feel like there were a lot of ways you could have said that would not be inaccurate in the scene. To still get across that he was like looking at her in that way, you know?
That line just really feels very Gaiman-y to me.
Okay. Yeah, just a weird moment. So we cut briefly back to the Emperor's deck, basically, and he's asking whether it seems like there's any remaining cyber tech, and they assure him, no, indeed, there is not. And then the camera lifts up out of that room, and we see one last cybermite spinning around in space.
Yep.
And I was just like, God damn it. I just want them to be dead. Just let them die.
Every time we think we're done with them. Oh, we've eliminated the Cybermen again.
Ugh. I am disgusted. Every time they show up, I'm going to have this reaction, guys, so I hope you're ready for that.
Though it is not stated in the episode, writer Neil Gaiman revealed that he set Nightmare in Silver as taking place 250,000 years into the future.
Whoa. Okay.
And this is
I love things like that. Like, how do you even determine that is what you yourself have done?
This is the third consecutive penultimate episode to prominently feature Cybermen. Every next to last episode of a series featuring the 11th Doctor has done so.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's all I've got.
I've said what I said. Said what I'm going to say.
I did end up getting that Funko Pop of him as Mr. Clever, but it was after I had gotten an 11th Doctor pop where he's the 11th Doctor. I couldn't let my only 11th Doctor pop be Mr. Clever, because for me, that's not really him.
Yeah. That makes sense. So, what does the 11th one... He's got the bow tie.
I don't...
Right?
I should have bought one. There was one where he was wearing a fez. There was one where he had a broom and the fez that was like a Hot Topic exclusive, and I didn't buy it. When I started really collecting Doctor Who pops, I couldn't find those ones, so the one I have of the 11th Doctor is him wearing the orange spacesuit, which he wore a few episodes ago.
I don't remember.
I'm trying to think which episode that was that he was in that orange spacesuit. But it was one that we watched recently. And I thought that one was cute, and it was not as common as some of the other ones. And then I also got Mr. Clever because I saw it at, like, Michael's or something, like, really cheap. Like, the weirdest place to find it, but I was like, all right, fine, I'll get this one.
All right. Well, guys, just FYI, don't get me any Doctor Who pop dolls, because I have literally no space in my room for any more pop dolls of any kind. If this is giving you ideas, shelve the ideas, because I cannot shelve a pop doll.
I, for the record, have most of the Doctor Who pops now. So I have the Silence, I have a Weeping Angel. The only thing I don't have is, I have a TARDIS, but it's a particular TARDIS. I don't have just the plain TARDIS with the doors open. That one's hard to find, and it's pretty expensive now.
I'm looking at the Weeping Angel pops, and that is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Because I was just sort of like, wow, how did they do that? But they made them like the angry face rather than the face
yeah.
covered.
I don't have an Amy Pond pop because that one was exclusive to Comic-Con, and I'm not spending that kind of money to get it now. But I did find Rory, so I have Rory as the Centurion.
I'm going to look up also, what was the other one? You said the Silence.
Silence is good.
Because that, I bet, is really creepy looking. Ooh, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's good. But don't get it for me. Everybody, still, I stand by it. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to wrap up. Reminder that the next 2 weeks there won't be episodes because I will be on vacation. Appreciate all of your support. And, there's a lot of Unspoiled out there to listen to if you want to tide yourself over. I recommend reading the Cradle series and reading that while you listen to Spoil Me episodes covering the Cradle series. That's my one recommendation. And watch Dr. Sleep.
Watch Broadchurch.
Oh, and Broadchurch is, I started that one. I'll have one episode of coverage tomorrow before I go on vacation. So that will be the second one, and then no episodes until, I think January.
Yeah, January was, I think I commissioned the second and third ones, and I got, one in November, and then the next one available was January.
So maybe wait to watch Broadchurch until Christmas time, because it's a super Christmassy, comforting show.
Yeah, totally warm and fuzzy.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you again. We love you, and we will see you in 3 weeks with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.